Good afternoon and welcome to this live webinar. My name is Sharon Buer and I'm Head of Primary Programs for the Young Enterprise Trust. For the next 45 minutes I'll take you through and showcase how to get the PrEP program humming in your school. In this webinar we'll give you tips and tricks for working smarter in PrEP through setting up effective systems for exchange of money, resource purchasing, banking and government structures. We'll show you how to get your ventures and businesses running smoothly and your entrepreneurs set up for success. Moving on to the next slide, this webinar is the second in a three-part series. Part 1, Getting PrEP Started in Your School, aired on 12th of March. We recommend that you watch the recording of this webinar. You go to our website and click into the Professional Development tab and you'll find a schedule, and if you scroll down you'll find PrEP Getting Started and you'll see the YouTube link. The final webinar in this series, How to Get the Most of the PrEP program, will showcase the free online resources that will support you to get the most of the PrEP program. This webinar is on Monday 7th of April at 4 p.m. to 4:45. If you want to register for that webinar, just go to our website. We're going to move on to talking about money matters, all things money in PrEP. So to begin with, let's look at creating and introducing the PrEP currency. This was actually covered in our Getting PrEP Started in Your School webinar, but just to recap, schools are going to choose whether to create a school-based currency. Design generally reflects the school culture, or use the PrEP currency templates that are provided on Young Enterprise Trust's online resource centre, or teachers may choose to use New Zealand dollars, and some schools have a marketplace where they have exchange using New Zealand dollars and students run their businesses and take a risk with real money. Just moving on to the Treasury slide, with the school-based currency and PrEP template currency, we strongly recommend that schools keep an account of the money that is introduced to the PrEP community. When money is withdrawn, for example, if it's damaged or new currency is introduced, this should be recorded in the Treasury account book. Through this, students learn the function of a treasury, just as we have in our democratic market-based society. They learn the importance of accounting for and keeping money safe. On our next slide, we'd like to just give you an idea of, a lot of teachers ask us, how much money do you print in PrEP, and how much would be recorded in the Treasury book when PrEP commences. It's not an exact science, and it's determined by a number of factors. These include the number of students and teachers engaged in the program, the number of PrEP sessions per week, the amount students will be paid, and how long wages will be paid before students have an opportunity for selling their products and offering their services at market. It also really depends on the mix of ventures, where a teacher may be running a venture with a group of students and the teacher is leading that venture, or whether you've got entrepreneurs in your PrEP program. It's interesting just to clarify, entrepreneurs decide their own wages. They're given a startup grant and they have to manage their own wages, their warehouse purchases and all their other bills from that startup grant. So that has to be factored into how you come up with the amount of money you print. But on the screen we've got a fairly simple formula for you. If you had no chance for students to actually do some exchange of money, exchange of their goods and services before the market day, then you could simply take the number of students, multiply it by the number of PrEP sessions, and the amount of wages that is paid per person for each session, and then the number of weeks till market. And you would have enough money there to then be able to pay out the wages in all the different bits and pieces. On the next slide, I've given an example there of what that would look like. So if you had 150 students, and this may be teachers as well, and 2 sessions of PrEP per week, and your wages were $5 per session per student, you had 6 weeks until market day. If you were to multiply those, you'd be printing around $9,000 worth of your school-based currency. Most schools then put a little contingency into that, and that could be for paying teacher wages, because generally in PrEP teachers are working and they like to get paid as well, so that they've got some fun money to enjoy at the marketplace. And though the Treasury is generally made up of the different denominations that we have in our New Zealand currency, you very rarely need a lot of hundreds and $50 notes, but you generally need a lot of the lower denominations, the $5, the $10 and the $20 notes. Don't forget, it's really nice if you can include teachers in that, and it doesn't matter if you get it wrong, because there's always the opportunity to print some more money should you need that. We talk about, on the next slide, the money go round. So why would you even bother having a treasury? You could just print the money and put it out there and not actually keep a coordinated approach to what has gone out into your economy. Well, in the economy, it's everything people do to earn money, and every job is really important. And having a treasury helps you keep tabs on what money is in circulation. It helps your PrEP bankers to pay out the wages, prepare the floats for the stalls, to give change at market. All of those processes really require having a store of money that can be used. And a treasury record helps teachers to recognise when inflation is coming into play. So inflation happens in your PrEP economy when there's too much money in circulation. And students have earned wages, but they haven't had an opportunity to spend their money at market. And what often happens is the price of goods and services rises because people have lots of money in hand and they're not very selective about what they spend that on. So it's a really good thing to keep in mind. One of the things on the next slide we'd like to just highlight is that how do you actually manage that treasury? You know, a ledger book can be a really, really good way to do that. On the screen we've got an example of a treasury record where $10,000 worth of PrEP money was put into the economy, and it's been recorded in what is a very simple cash book system with a memo column, so that you can record, for example, if currency is withdrawn, that is recorded in there. It might have been torn money, damaged money, and so now we have a withdrawal and the money is down to $9,800, and so we have money going in and out of that, and the Treasury and the government know exactly where they stand. So students learn to in PrEP manage their personal money using a personal cash book, and ventures and businesses learn to manage their business money using a business cash book, and the government can do exactly the same. So there's a lot of experience at using cash book ledgers, and they can be easily tracked, which is an important practice, good financial practice for the students. You'll notice in our example the balance is always kept up to date, because if it's not, how do you know how much money you have in your economy? Right, we're going to move on now on the next slide to wages. Now in PrEP, students are paid for their work, whether they're working in a teacher-led venture or are entrepreneurs. Keeping accurate records of wages earned and wages paid is a really good idea. It's difficult for a business to account for their wages if they don't have good records. What if the tax department audits you? And in some PrEP societies, teachers have introduced a tax system and had government actually manage that. It works really well, a ledger book, for recording wages. or even more simply, you can use a cash book and just modify that for your program. It's helpful to have accountants who can manage that within each business. The example you can see here is from Selwyn Ridge School, and they use a weekly wages summary sheet, and all of the students are listed on the left, and this can even be managed at year 2, a simple system like this. You might choose to have accountants each venture and each business who keep an account of the wages that are paid out to workers. Wages are recorded as a withdrawal from the business cash book, and they're always recorded as a deposit to workers' personal bank accounts. And it's a very important concept for us about keeping those separate. And we have a nice example of that for you on our next slide. Personal and business money, always kept separate. When students earn their wages, that is paid to employees from the businesses, and they have the choice to save, spend, share or invest their PrEP money. For business money, when businesses earn their income, they too have choices. They can pay their business partners wages. They can profit share when they have some very good profits coming from their markets, and they can even reinvest in their business, or entrepreneurs may choose to invest in other students' businesses. And these are all really important concepts for them to learn. One of the things that's very important is that all partners in the business must agree to taking shares from their business account. And in this way they're learning to keep personal and business money separate. On our next slide, we're going to talk about foreign exchange at market. This is another very important money concept that the students will experience in PrEP, and inviting parents to market is a popular PrEP activity. So it provides an opportunity for students to share the wonderful learning that has taken place in PrEP. Also to learn about foreign exchange in an authentic context, and for the school to also gather income that can be used for a range of purposes. Now this could be donation to a favourite charity. It could be to purchase materials for the next year's PrEP program so that your warehouse is a lot cheaper for you to actually resource. Or it could be that you're having a class or a syndicate event at the conclusion of the year, and you'd like the students to use the money earned from that market at that event. So looking at our next slide, you'll notice that we've got some suggestions for exchange rates when you have a foreign exchange at your market. So your bank would set that up, and a great exchange rate can be 1 New Zealand dollar to 10 PrEP dollars. That enables your visitors to market, to enjoy the market and to buy products, but not to be actually paying out an awfully large amount of money, but enough to get some money coming in that you can then use. If parents and visitors to market have PrEP currency left over after their shopping, it can be exchanged back to the New Zealand dollars at the conclusion of market. Generally, you'll find that parents are very happy to keep their PrEP dollars when the market closes, so exchange is not very often required back after the marketplace. That's all we're going to cover in this webinar regarding our money in PrEP, but we'd like to move on now on our next slide to talking about resourcing the warehouse, because systems, effective systems, are really an important part of this process. And the warehouse is commonly called the Emporium, and it's a focal point for PrEP. Ventures and businesses rely on the PrEP warehouse for the materials they need to produce their products and to get their services ready for mini markets and market day. There are two aspects to resourcing your PrEP. There's resourcing the actual warehouse where the students collect their resources from, but it's also the managing the resources in stock. Once ventures and businesses are decided and students have come up with the products and the services, they will likely have made a prototype of their product, and on the slide you will see that we've listed the materials for a fantastic little petrock business, and we've listed all of the resources that are required and the quantity. So what would happen here is that students would know exactly what materials that they need to run their services and to produce their products for market. They should, each business, provide a resource list initially to the warehouse, and that is used as a starting point for deciding what needs to be bought for your warehouse. And they'll be working documents, so your students should be updating those with additions and deletions, and some of your students in the warehouse may be really very keen to actually set up some amazing systems, like even having a warehouse catalogue. On our next slide, we've got a picture there for you to just give you an idea. Some schools have a physical warehouse space. So they actually have, it might just be a little storage area that's not being used in your school, and the students who elect to work in that warehouse should be included in managing all aspects of the PrEP resources, including setting up the warehouse, creating the systems, shopping for the resources and delivery of materials, and stock taking when they are replacing resources that are becoming depleted. Some schools allow students to accompany a parent or a teacher who is charged with managing the PrEP resource shopping. So a teacher in your school could manage that, but a lot of schools say to us when they get a parent involved in that process, it really takes a big load off them, and they can get on with the other important parts of managing PrEP. And parents often, can come in and take a small group of students off to somewhere like Countdown, to your $2 shop, or to your little emporium, areas where they can get those resources at cost-effective prices. On our next slide, we're going to talk about managing the resources within the warehouse. So students should really be involved in creating all the paper forms that assist them to manage the warehouse resources. They may be order forms, invoices, receipts, and these are authentic opportunities to develop the key competency using language, symbols and text. As I said before, some warehouse workers have created warehouse catalogues, and each venture or business is provided one at the start of PrEP, again a working document that can be updated, and resources are listed with the quantities and the prices, so students can fill out order forms back in their areas where they're working, and the warehouse can then have that delivered, and they can make sure those resources are available. Updating it with deleted stock and additions is a really important process. You can do that electronically. Some schools have created online resourcing forms, online ordering, so that they can even update a warehouse catalogue, and it can be like real time, and the group can actually go in and see what changes have been made. On our next slide, we want to just introduce something that some schools have found really helpful, and that is having resource managers who actually within each venture are identified as the people who are going to really look after how the whole resource aspects of PrEP run. So if you just let anyone go and visit the warehouse, it can become very chaotic, and it can be eliminated when you put in systems like a resource manager. They're very important. They have a special badge, and you can see the one here was for the Funky Fitness PrEP group, and what they do is check the stocks, make sure that there's all the things required within that group, and if they don't have those, they complete an order form to go to the warehouse. When the warehouse get those resources ready, they collect their resources, and they are in charge of paying the warehouse invoices. Government can ensure that those systems are followed, and setting up a very small and simple government can be very helpful with these types of systems you might want to put in place. Also, viewing the videos of how other PrEP schools have set up their PrEP warehouses is highly recommended. They're found in the warehouse folder on the PrEP program part of the online resource centre, and we'll be showing you all those links shortly. We're going to move on now to discuss the warehouse banking. With wages to be paid, personal and business accounts to be managed, money to be ready for market, students are keen to manage the finances, and really to have students do that, they're in hot demand. If you can have students who are managing the banking, it's a process that is very, very important. And in our Part 1 webinar, we discussed the various ways that banking can be arranged. 1 or 2 students from each venture can manage the personal and business accounts for their own groups. And they can happen back in their own working area. Or you may choose to have personal bankers who are assigned to 1 or 2 businesses, and they solely manage all of the banking, so they don't run a business of their own. Or you may have a physical bank with bank tellers. They're a lot of fun, but they do require space and a lot of more organisation, and they're not as easy to start up and shut down during PrEP time, because if you are using an area that you set out as a proper bank, you might have teller stations, you might have some rope for little aisles for them to go down. All of that needs to be tidied up at the end of PrEP. So it's important for you to choose the best system that works for you. Of course, they're very authentic if you can do so. Regardless of which system students and teachers select, good structures help for smooth banking operations. So on our next slide, we're going to introduce you to some really nice banking tools that could assist with this. For bankers to pay out the wages and accept the deposits and give floats for market, they have to have ready access to the PrEP currency, and a banker box is an ideal way to do that. You can see here we've just used an A4 filer box, and that's been divided into sections with the currency divided into the different denominations, and on the lid, inside of the lid of the filer box, there's a banker reconciliation sheet where the banker, when they visit different groups, records the money they take out of their banking box, the money that they deposit into the banking box, and then that is all tallied up at the end, and the banker's box is then reconciled and new currency is put in. Now, why would you do that? Well, it's really very helpful to make sure that the banking practices are being done correctly, and it really minimises any chance of anything like theft of money within your system. And it's a really, really nice, simple way for the bankers to manage their money. At the end of the banking system, those boxes can be put away in a cupboard that would be locked, and you've got that no risk of theft with the money, because to your students that is real money with real value in the marketplace. Okay, now moving on to banking structures. Bankers should create all of the systems and paperwork just as the warehouse people do that are required to manage the personal and business accounts. And the simplest account record is that personal cash book. So we can't understate how helpful a personal cash book can be. If each individual's record of their banking is held on a cash book and the business is held on a cash book, all accounts can be kept in something as simple as a ring binder. On the screen you can see that here's a very simple banking record for an individual. The account number is recorded at the top with the student's name, and every time they do a deposit or a withdrawal of money, it is recorded in here. If they chose to bank their wages, it would have a date and it would be recorded as wages banked, and it would be a deposit, and the balance is always kept up to date. Even in a big PrEP program, you could actually have just one ring binder that would handle all of the different ventures, and you might put a little section divider in between each of those businesses. But it's really important to have a backup if something should go wrong. So It's really a good idea to keep a backup system. Some students like to do that electronically, but it can be as simple as having a photocopied version of all of your banking records. Moving to the next slide, I'd like to just talk about electronic banking because students are very tech savvy and they love to use electronic banking systems, and these can be a lot of fun and they really do mirror the real banking in the real world that we live in. They provide a great opportunity to integrate your ICT teaching and learning with real purpose. But something you need to be aware of is that with electronic banking systems, students really handle the currency. If they are putting in automatic deposits and everything's held in spreadsheets or in a database type system, what can sometimes happen is a bit like the 5-year-old thinking of you can get money out of the wall using a card. You know, they see their parents doing it, so it must be true. It's really important for the students to handle the currency. So if you do use electronic banking systems, they become sophisticated. It's really wise to return those systems to very simple structures every 2 to 3 years in your program. Have bankers hand out the wages manually and get your automated transactions out of the system for a bit. And be sure to view the banking videos in the banking folder PrEP program on the Online Resource Centre. There are some really good examples of simple and complex banking systems showcased there. That's all we're going to discuss with regard to banking systems today, and we're going to move on now to our next slide and discuss government. Now, setting up a government structure in PrEP is really optional for schools. For your short duration PrEP programs, they're not very viable. So if you're doing PrEP for less than a term, we'd recommend that you simply come up with some simple rules for PrEP that are agreed by the students and teachers. Some common sense rules are just needed. We'll respect others by moving quietly around the school in PrEP time. In PrEP time, we'll be focused on working in our businesses. Those simple rules are all that are required, and they can be brainstormed and agreed and maybe something signed by the students. On our next slide, we've talked about something that's really important, which is disincentives to behaviours in PrEP that you'd like to avoid happening and occurring. So in a lot of ways, these are about your consequences that you set in place. Now, they may be simple fines, which are often loss of wages. And the fines in your PrEP program, they need to be fairly significant if they're to be a disincentive. If they're just something minimal and not very significant, students are likely to not take very much notice of them. In the example we've shown you on the slide here, it's a noise violation. The name gives it away. In this school, students were fined 10 herons, which was the currency for the school. And the government had these little fine sheets. They were just like a little card, and they would go out. They were laminated so they could use your markers that you can actually clean at the end, so you're not making lots of these. And what they did was they would go out, do random checks during PrEP, and find students who weren't moving around quietly and respecting other groups. You know, in some schools, not all classes are involved in the program, so it's very important that students are respectful of others. Another fine that has been quite popular in schools, we call it a wrong place, wrong time fine, and that would be one where students weren't engaged in their PrEP work, might be mucking around, left the venture, going to the warehouse without a resource manager badge. That fine just helps to keep people on task, working at what they should be doing. Government workers would record the date, what venture the students worked in, and they would sign that, and the money would be automatically withdrawn by the government from the personal bank account of that student, because fines should be kept personalised to the students, not the ventures. It's quite interesting, but teachers come back to us and they're amazed at the outcome of putting fines into PrEP, simple ones and not many of them. Sometimes less is more, and they're amazed at the capacity that has to keep order in their society. Okay, on our next slide, I just want to talk about that if you do choose to have a full-on government structure in your PrEP society, it's a great way to engage your students and for them to gain knowledge, skills and experience and understanding that people have economic roles, rights and responsibilities, and how groups make and implement rules and laws, and it's a really great way for them to experience and understand how producers and consumers exercise their rights and meet their responsibilities. So you can see it's all about the economic world, and what better way to engage your students with the social science achievement objectives of the New Zealand curriculum than have them learn about the role of government by being involved in setting that up and setting up their PrEP society for success. Moving on now to government elections, electing students to represent your PrEP community can be a lot of fun, and it also provides an opportunity for authentic learning about New Zealand's democratic society. Some PrEP schools hold elections, and students who are wishing to represent their peers write election speeches, and they basically deliver those much as politicians do in front of their audience. And the New Zealand curriculum states understanding, using and creating oral, written and visual texts of increasing complexity is at the heart of the English teaching and learning. So by engaging them with text-based activities, students become increasingly skilled and sophisticated speakers and listeners, writers and readers, presenters and viewers. Government elections and involving students in those practices really bring out that part of the English curriculum. That's all we're going to talk about with our government today, and we're going to move on now just to have a little look at some systems at Market Day that might be very helpful for you. Market Day is the culmination of the program. That's a highlight of the activity your students have been involved in PrEP. After weeks of preparing their products and services for the marketplace, they now finally find out how their hard work is going to pay off in the form of profits, hopefully. Behind the scenes, a number of things need to be prepared to ensure that market runs smoothly. There may be invitations that are going to be sent out to parents and caregivers or members of your local community. You might invite local dignitaries, counsellors, business people and the media to Market Day, and that helps you to gain profile for your program. Students love being featured in print and online media. Market Day booklets are a great way for visitors and parents to find out a little more about what's happening in your PrEP program. They might include short descriptions of ventures and businesses, the curriculum links for the students working in those businesses, and the locations of the businesses at market. And some of the processes that you may get students involved in will be mini market passes, Market Day stalls and Market Day floats. Now these are all processes that engage your students with using language, symbols and text, and are excellent ways to get good systems running. On our next slide, I've popped a little picture of one school's layout for their Market Day. So you can see they've got parking for their visitors, the stalls are all set out, numbered, and they were provided, all of the visitors, a little booklet that had the locations of the ventures and the venture descriptions of each of the businesses. And that's a great way to get prepared for your Market Day visitors. On our next slide, we want to just talk briefly about a market stall roster. Your students have worked really hard, they've earned income, they want to enjoy market, but it's going to be important that your stalls are manned, so the businesses need to be engaged on Market Day, and they may be cashiers, making sure the money's all there ready for the business. They might be the stall holders. In this group, There was a group doing sushi prep, you can see there, because it's a sushi and crafts business, and they had some students who were doing crowd control, helping to make sure that people weren't pushing in the lines as they came to buy the wonderful sushi and origami. These are all really important parts. The students enjoy being consumers as well as being the producers of the products and the services. So you're going to have prepared your floats for stalls, and they're really important for giving change, and that helps you to get this facilitating the withdrawals from students' personal accounts. It's really helpful if the bankers in the lead up to market go and visit all the groups and do those withdrawals and in advance so students are ready. It's best organised by your bankers, who will go and be a skeleton staff on market day, so you might set up a mini mobile bank at market so that you can do exchange that is needed at last minute. In some schools, businesses set up a facility for purchasing products and enjoying services with no cash changing hands. For that to work, students need to know their account balances to ensure that they don't spend money they don't have. So businesses need to keep good systems for recording what is bought at their stalls, by whom, and how much was spent. It's even a really great idea to get students to sign that they have actually bought something from that store and that they owe that business 10 of the PrEP dollars. Later on, the bankers will be taking those sheets and processing them and making sure that the money is taken out of the students' personal accounts and deposited into the business accounts. Moving next to mini markets, for those schools that are running PrEP for longer periods, there is the option of having more than one market. So you can actually set up some little mini markets, and they've proven to be very successful. Students are able to sell their products, offer their services outside of market day during normal PrEP venture time. Students set up their stall, it might be outside their room they work in, and mini market runs for a set period, usually a shortish time, about 30 minutes. And in order for this not to be disruptive to your PrEP program, businesses book in advance to run those, at least a week in advance, possibly 2, and government can manage a booking system. Some students are invited to spend a portion of their PrEP session at the mini market, and that might be that you choose for this to be a reward system for your really diligent workers, or there might be some special reason you would like to give them a special mini market pass. Mini market passes are simply a small little card that has the name of the student, the date of the mini market, what time they're allowed to be at the market, and it's signed by the CEO of the business. And we have examples of those on our PrEP course part of our online resource centre. The last one of our systems we're really going to talk about today is entrepreneurs. Your PrEP entrepreneurs are the ones who set up the businesses and take a risk that they might lose their money. So they may go bankrupt. In most PrEP societies you're going to be using a school-based currency, so there's not that risk of losing real money. But your entrepreneurs create the employment for the other students, and they're very important in your PrEP society. They should be encouraged to manage all aspects of their own business. Teachers are acting more as mentors for these students, encouraging them, providing guidance, but taking more of a hands-off approach with regard to any business planning, implementation of their business ideas. They should develop their own systems for resourcing, design, production, promotions and sales of their products and services. So they should also be encouraged to keep accurate records, examples of all of their business practice, order forms, receipts. If they were to try to gain sponsorship to get some money into their business, then they should be writing sponsorship letters. Now, a great way to keep all of that learning is in a business portfolio. and students can keep all the different parts of that, and we've got quite a lot of examples of those in the My Courses part of the PrEP section. See the Entrepreneurs folder to see how other schools have enjoyed that. Now, the last thing I'll talk about just before we briefly show you how to get onto the resources, how do you go about recording the PrEP journey? To record your PrEP journey, it's really important to keep some record that you can actually see what this wonderful learning has been. It's highly recommended. Schools all do it differently to meet the needs of their students and their school curriculum. But we've got examples of journals, venture books that teachers use as inspiration, and they're on the online resource centre. They're provided generally as Word documents, and you can personalise those to your school, change the vocab, add your own school logos, and we want you to make those your own. The key processes that they engage in PrEP: brainstorming products and services, deciding products and services, production plans, marketing plans, finances, evaluation, and even photos of PrEP in action should be captured in those journals or venture books. Students can share those with their parents when they have three-way conferences or parent-student conferences, along with the vocab wall that we discussed in the Getting PrEP Started in Your School webinar. If you haven't seen that and you'd like to go back and see the recording, you'll see that on the Young Enterprise Trust website, and that's under Professional Development Webinars, and there is a list and a schedule and you can view the recording there. Now, for your younger students, new entrants to Year 3, they need to be able to record their PrEP journey as well, but it must be in a much simpler format. At Selwyn Ridge School in Tauranga, the students keep a scrapbook, and they glue in all their little planning sheets, and they've done that recording themselves, not the teacher, and it's absolutely amazing, and clearly they understand what they're doing, and they've been involved in all aspects of their program. Some schools use a big book approach, where on every page in the big book the learning of the week and what has happened over the week is recorded, and students illustrate those with their lovely pictures. And we've got examples of those as well in the Petite PrEP section of the online resource centre. New entrant students, shown on the screen from Roseney's school, they formed a company called the Bubble Wand Shop, and their PrEP work was fully integrated into their whole curriculum program: English, mathematics and statistics, science, and on the screen you can see their lovely designs for currency that they created as part of their visual arts program. So they made prints, and then they were judged, and they were then turned into the currency for the PrEP program for the year. When I visited the program, they were experimenting with their bubbles, making bath bombs, and the students were taking turns adding ingredients. They were reading the recipe off their teacher's iPhone, and I was just blown away by what 5-year-olds can do. So if you've got younger students, don't be feeling that you can't manage something like PrEP and the recording. It can be done at a very simple level. Okay, now moving to our slides on how to access the resources. If you have a look here, to access those resources you need to go to our website, and we've got the website address there for you, www.youngenterprise.org.nz, and you'll see the Professional Development tab, and if you click on Sign Up for Free Resources, you'll be able to go in and click on the ones that you would particularly like to use. Looking at the next slide, we've got an example of our Year 1, 2, 3 resource sign-up page. It's our registration page. It's very straightforward and takes just a couple of minutes to complete. If you've already done that, that's wonderful. If you haven't, get on to that as soon as you can. On our next slide, you can see for each of the programs or resource collections, you're asked what resources and what year age group you're going to be using them with, and it also helps if you can give us a rough estimate of the number of students that will be involved. If you don't want to use a resource, just move on to the next question. But be sure to push the Send My Information to Young Enterprise Trust button when you finish, and you'll receive a copy in your email inbox to confirm you've done that. You'll receive a second email from the support team with a unique log-on, and you will be able to get that within the next business day, working day. So now let's just have a quick look at how you log on to the Resource Centre. The next slide, resources.youngenterprise.org.nz. We've got hundreds of resources, and for 2014 only teachers can get access to these resources, and we're looking at ways of allowing students access, but for now it's really for teachers. So just follow that web address. There's a screenshot there for you, and on there you'll find teachers' manuals, units of work, podcasts, and lots of different things. You'll even find case studies. It's free to all of you, and on the top right hand corner, off you go, log on. The next slide shows our log on page. It has a username, which is your first name dot last name. We'll supply you with a password, and you'll be able to reset that at any stage. If you forget your password, don't panic, because we can email. If you email us, we'll reset it for you, and you will then be able to go in and put in something of your choice. And once you're logged in, you should be able to be directed to the home page. On our next slide, you'll see that we have a personal home page. Always is in the top left hand corner, just under the Young Enterprise logo, and the resources that you have access to are shown in the main body. And all you need to do is see the red box on screen, check out any of the resources by just clicking on the link. All of them will be listed in the middle of the page. There's many types of different files: Word docs, Excel spreadsheets, PowerPoints, PDFs, video links, video clips. The content will differ depending on the program. There's a lot of PrEP content on there for you. On the next slide, so here you can see all the resources that are available for teachers who are using the PrEP program in their classrooms. You can preview the resources online and download them. Once you download them, you can save them to your system and use them on as many computers as you like in your classrooms. Have a good look around that area, because there is an awful lot on there. On the next slide, we've just got there for you the key contacts back at the Trust. Our support team are a fantastic resource. Their phone number is there with the, just press 1 when you get into there and it will take you straight through. And my details are there, my direct dial at the office and my email address. And if you have any problems, just feel free to contact us at any time. Now, for any questions you have, I'm just going to hand you over to Helen now. Many thanks, Helen.
Thanks, Sharon. We've got no questions at the present time, so we'll keep moving on.
Now, we're very grateful to Helen and the Magpie team, Magpie Media, for their fantastic support of the Young Enterprise Trust and helping us with our webinar today. So thank you, Helen. All the best, everyone, for your Young Enterprise, Primary Enterprise program for 2014. We're looking forward to working with you. We love to hear back from you with stories. We're running a resource competition this year, which I'll be sending out information on shortly, and that will run over Term 2 and Term 3 and halfway into Term 4, and we're hoping that you can send in some fantastic examples of the work you've done with your students. Thank you and goodbye. Have a great week.
Great, thanks Sharon, and thank you everybody, and I'll end the webinar for us this afternoon. Have a good evening.